save his identity.
All right, Doug.
And you can call me Mr. Fitness.
Yeah. All right. So we're here today with Doug, with Lethal Doug. His name appears as I hover over things, and we are going to show him. He wants to learn Protoss. So this is his first game ever. It's a 16-minute game where he maxed out and destroyed his opponent. But we are telling him today the core fundamentals of Protoss. And
we're putting the fun in fundamentals.
Exactly. So, Doug, what are the 4 words I asked you to write down?
That would be grab a piece of... after the grab a piece of paper. Sorry.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, so there were a couple words I asked you, too.
Oh, no.
Fantastic, fantastic. So the
Back
4...
to the drawing board, erase it.
The 4 macro terms.
It would be probes, pylons, units, infrastructure.
Fantastic. So let me explain. Above everything else, until you get to about 66 workers, you're just going to want to focus on number one thing. If your Nexus isn't making a worker, you need to make it making a worker. So that's your probes. So every time you think probes, you're going to click on your hotkey for your Nexus, and you're going to make as many probes as you have Nexus. The next thing is you're going to think pylons. So as soon as you make all those probes, you need to look at your supply. Right now here, you're at 37 of 54. That's okay. You've got some room. If that's ever within about 10, you need to make maybe one. You should make 1 pylon per Nexus you have. So if you're on 1 Nexus, you make 1 pylon. If you have 2 Nexus, you make 2 pylons. If you have 3 Nexus, you make 3 pylons. Okay? And then next, after you make your probes and your pylons, you have your units, which means you're going to have gateways or whatever you want. And you're going to make as many units as you can. Okay? Mm-hmm. And now the last is infrastructure. As you get more and more probes, you're going to make probes, make pylons, and then you're going to be making units, and you're going to realize, hey, I still can't spend my money. That's what infrastructure is. As soon as you can't spend your money, you need to make more things to spend your money. So that's more gateways, more tech, getting a robo facility, getting a Stargate. And then you just rinse and repeat. And as soon as you can, again, you make your probes, you make your pylons, you make your units, and you make your structures. Now, at some point, you're going to hit 66 workers. As soon as you hit 66 workers, you don't need to think about probes anymore. Then you just think about pylons, units, infrastructure. And at some point, you're going to hit 200 supply. Then guess what? You don't need to build pylons anymore. Then you're worrying about units and infrastructure. That's when you should be attacking your opponent, when you have a maxed out army, and you can just walk over there and just keep destroying and destroying, and then come back to your base and make units. And if you can't make any more units, make some infrastructure. So as you're banking up a lot of minerals and you're losing your army, you can remax out very quickly as Protoss. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, that's your lesson for today.
So one question I have is, what do I actually need to control select? Because I know there's idle worker, there are all the producing unit bases. Do I have to do that with Nexuses?
Oh, okay. Here's how I play Protoss, okay? This is my hotkey scheme. So all of my Nexus is the same as you. You have them all on your 4 key, right?
Yeah.
So your Nexus is on 4, that's great. And have them all rallied out to the things you want. Now your warp gates, right? When you have warp gates, all you need to do is hit W, and you can select all your warp gates at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So you don't need to build a hotkey for those warp gates. That's fine. But when you start making robo facilities, or robotics facilities, and you start making starports, I think it's a good idea to put those on a hotkey. So you just select, you select it, you hit shift, and then you just click a button, whatever hotkey you want. So my suggestion for you is 5. That's what I use. It's kind of out of the way, but it's still close enough that I can use very easily. I use 1, 2, and 3 for different army groups. If I'm doing harassing, if I'm doing drops, if I'm doing, splitting my attacks up, I use 1, 2, and 3 for all of my spellcasters and things like that once you get more APM. But 4 for Nexus, 5 for infrastructure that you can't just warp in quickly is my best idea. And then for your units out on the map, I think just selecting them and putting them into control group 1 is fine.
The big reason that I started doing control groups is I don't know if you've played with a warp prism yet, Pete. Doug. Excuse me. I jump back into the conversation.
How dare
mess
you.
things up.
It's already you
Mess
killed
things
it.
up. But it's pretty much a unit that flies over your units and you can warp. It's like a pylon, a moving pylon, so you can warp in reinforcements. I did the select all army thing until about the third time I flew my warp prism over a bunch of cannons, and I was like, I need to put them on a different tab. So that's when I started doing it.
Gotcha.
That's why I never use the select all army hotkey anymore. I just put them, even if I have my whole army, I just put it on control group 1. That way, if I do have a warp prism or observers that I have scattered across the map, I'm not dragging everything into the fight. But that's probably in a minute.
But really good, Pete. This was a great game. So, any other questions before we get back in and try it again and max out before 15 minutes?
So, what was the purpose of the core being built?
Of the what? The cyber core?
Yeah.
Warp gate.
Okay, so as soon as you get warp gate, it's unless you do air, then you want to get the +1 on air, right?
Well, yeah. But also you can't build stalkers without it, and you can't build your you can't build your robo or anything like that until you have the core. So your core is
maintained until after. So once those are all up, you don't need to keep it the same.
Right. Unless you want to build more stalkers, which you don't really need to, and once you have your robotics facility, yeah, your core can get destroyed, and you'll probably be okay.
Yep.
As long as you have the rest of your buildings up.
So then there goes that. That's going.
But
Forge.
you do need it as soon as possible.
Quick rundown. So core is for warp and stalker.
Yep.
What is the forge for? Forge is +1.
Upgrades.
Upgrades. Any upgrades for +1 attack, +1 armor, or +1 shields. That's what you're going to get out of your forge. And it also lets you make cannons.
Let's be honest, you're never gonna have shields. It's just fine.
The game doesn't.
Shields
last
is
that
the
long.
lowest priority, but
Okay.
but yeah,
And then one sec.
the Twilight Council, which you just finished
Yeah.
building, it's for charge, and it lets you build your Twilight, your Templar archives, so you can build archons.
Okay. So the Twilight allows for that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Pete, click on the click on a probe and click on the advanced building. Okay. So you have the top tier, the middle tier, and the third tier. Okay. Right. So that top tier opens up the ability to build all of the buildings under it. So if you want to get a Dark Shrine to make Cloak Dark Templar, you need to make a Twilight Council. Or if you want to
never
make a
realized
Templar Archives, you
Goes
need to make a
down.
Twilight Council. Yeah. If you want to make a Fleet Beacon for carriers, first you need to make a Stargate. If you want to make a robotics facility to make things like disruptors or colossi or things like that, you need to get a robo first. So sometimes you just build for you, with your build I taught you, you're just going to get the robo. You don't need to get the robotics bay. That's not useful for you. But you will want to get the Twilight Council and the Templar Archives. The Templar Archives is going to give you Archons, okay? So
But those are High Templar that are merged. So
yeah.
Yes.
So basically you
Yeah,
just
create
warp in
the
a
High
bunch of
Templar, and then the 2 High Templar merge together into an Archon.
Yep.
The High Templar are cheaper than the Dark Templar, so that's why you usually go that route if you're gonna do.
Are Archons stronger than Dark Templar?
There's a
Yes.
different advantage. There's a different advantage. Dark Templar are cloaked units, so unless your opponent has detection, you're basically invulnerable to them. Archons are really big, bulky units, so you can't move them around very quickly like you can with some charge lots or things like that. You can move them very fast, but they're very strong. They're very tanky, and they're just they don't die. So if you have Archons with you, they soak up a lot of damage. But your main damage doers, Pete, is the Immortal. The Immortal is basically your king of damage output. The more Immortals you have,
Those come from
robotics facility.
robotics.
robots. That's the thing I forgot.
It's okay.
The other nice thing about Archons is they only have 10 HP, which, I mean, if you look at your Zealot, it has 100.
Yeah.
But it has, like, what is it, 300 shields?
I think it's 200 or 250.
It's a shield unit. Yeah.
Yep.
250 shields. So they can pretty much, if they survive a fight, they come out, they're pretty much at full health.
Yep. It's very hard to kill immortals.
So they're, yeah.
Or archons.
They do splash damage.
Yep.
Too.
Yep. So
and
splash
they
damage
shoot
means if there's like a lot of Marines in one little pack and your Archon zaps it, you'll hit all of the Marines around that zap point. Where like a Stalker or a Charge Lot only attack one unit, Archons can attack multiple units at the same time.
But it's pretty much, if you think about it, your charge lots, they run in and they take a lot of damage and they do a lot of damage. Your Archons stand behind them and they zap AoE, and they're like a second barrier of defense. And then your Immortals, which are really high damage output, stand in the back and just blow things up.
Yeah, and they're very strong. Your Immortals will not die either. Basically, Pete, after you get better, you're gonna learn about different things you should do against different matchups. Like when I play Zerg, I should do this. When I play Terran, I should do this. Protoss, basically, you can never have too many Immortals, is the rule. If you have less than 15 Immortals, Robo Facility.
Immortals are robotic.
Yeah, if you have less than 15 Immortals, you probably don't have enough, is the good rule for you to
really,
remember.
the meat of Protoss is Zealots, Stalkers, and Immortals.
Not Stalkers, Archons. Stalkers,
Archons.
this is the big misconception for a lot of Protoss, Pete, and I'm glad you said that. Protoss players in the lower leagues never move away from Stalkers. Alright, Stalkers are not an end game composition. They are a stepping stone. So you build Stalkers first to stay alive, okay? That's the only reason you build Stalkers, is to stay alive and defend. And after that, you need to switch into something more long-term. Charge Lot Immortal Archon. Or you can go Carrier. Or you can do anything like that. Or Colossus. But just having Stalker on its own loses value over time. I would say up until about 8 minutes, Stalkers are really good. So if you think you want to win this game before 8 minutes, make a lot of Stalkers, get a whole bunch of Blink, and really, really try to push out and kill him quick.
Just kill him.
But if you want to,
Have you played with Blink at all?
No, I've never played with Blink. I'm reading it
It
though.
pretty much just, it just teleports your Stalker a short distance. The reason that you'll see like professional players use Stalkers is because they can move, if you can micro them really well, so move each individual Stalker to optimize it, they're really good.
Yeah.
I'm not
A lot
doing
of the
that.
things I always see are the early warp-ins around 6 minutes. That's a lot of what I've seen in builds.
Don't worry about that.
And
that's not what you're going to be working on. It's kind of a turtley build. You need to first understand Protoss. You need to understand what kills it and what it kills. And to do that, this is the best thing you can do. You get a maxed out army, and then you walk across the map. So I would say your first 100 games, until you've played 100 games on the ladder where you max out and try to do this, don't try to change anything. Your goal should be 66 workers as soon as I can. And again, all you have to do is those first 4 words I showed you. Probes, pylons, units, infrastructure. There it is. That's it.
And you're gonna lose a lot to people that go all in 4 minutes.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
That's just gonna happen.
But fuck you. Welcome to StarCraft. That's what happens.
But until you can get that giant build down, your macro down, to where you're doing it without thinking about it, that's just gonna happen.
Yeah, because right
then
now
you need to be doing that and scouting, and then changing your build to match the other person. It gets to be a lot. So pretty much, if you focus on, I'm gonna make a small defense, make my infrastructure get up to 200. You're gonna win a lot. You're gonna practice it. It's gonna become a little bit more natural. So you're not fighting over doing that, and then you'll be able to look at their base, see what they're doing.
Yeah, this game is 90% what your mistakes are, and 9.9% still your macro is bad, and then 0.01% they beat you because they're better than you. The only reason they're better than you is because their macro is better. Until I would say,
had a plan and they executed it better.
Until about Platinum, the only reason you're losing is because your macro is bad. You can build anything you want until platinum. As long as you're building it very efficiently and you're never floating minerals, you will win every game. I promise you.
I wanna counter that with, I've seen people get up to diamond just building marines, just building stalkers, and just building zerglings.
Yep.
You can get into the diamond like where Dan is trying hard, very, very hard.
Yeah,
you can do that by just building stalkers.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you build them quick enough, and if you know what the other player's doing and can counter it. You don't even have to counter it. You just build more stuff.
Yep.
Just having more stuff as a counter to their stuff.
My favorite saying, Pete, and this is another thing we'll go out on this, is when you're shit, more shit beats less shit. It's a good thing to live by when you're playing StarCraft.
I'm gonna get that stitched onto a pillow.
All right, good job. Let's see if we can max out again before 15 minutes, buddy.
You can put Jordan in against me.
All right,
Let's see.
we could do that.